Yep.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Maura Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, which is different than the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, which I think you probably hear about a lot more often. I really appreciate the time on your agenda to speak with you all today, having never been in this committee. I know you have a lot of work that I'm reading about in the press, and it's wonderful work that I'm excited you're doing. I'm here to speak about a very specific nuance, which is the mixed income housing definition. There is a current definition of mixed income housing that is important because that is what triggers the priority housing project exemption. And while there's talk of not worrying about priority housing projects in certain downtown areas, if that goes away, priority housing projects will remain for other designated areas, so this is important that we look at this definition. The current definition is problematic because it refers to certain purchase price limits that VHFA, the agency I work for, sets. And several years ago, we changed our business model, and we no longer set those limits. So the statute is referencing something that doesn't exactly exist anymore, which is why I'm bringing it to you now. The language, I'm going to scroll down to the current definition. You can see here that it references for owner-occupied housing that either 15 or 20% of the housing units the price would be set at the 85% of the new construction targeted area purchase price limits established and published by VHFA. We no longer have to have new construction targeted area purchase price limits. So we need to change that. Also, I will tell you that this was probably not the most nuanced bit of language in the first place, because when we do set what limits we have at VHFA, they are often based on national numbers. There's no regional difference between the counties in the state. They aren't necessarily updated annually, and we have now multiple homeownership mortgage programs. And so when this says VHFA's limits, if you were to go to our website and find out what limits we do have, you wouldn't know what program to look at and how this all works. So we've had a workaround for a little while. VHFA created a web page on our site that said, these are the new construction targeted area purchase price limits, and followed old math of how we used to do things. It's very confusing, and I want to highlight that. So we have a proposal that has been shared with the administration, with the traditional affordable housing partners. You probably hear from more, VHCB and the Affordable Housing Coalition. We've talked to VNRC and VNRB. And so people know that we've put this out here. And what we're trying to do is change the mixed income housing definition to be that any project where 20% of the units meet the existing affordable housing definition would be mixed income housing. Because we think that that is what most closely matches what your previous or current language says. The current definition, just as a reminder, is either 15 or 20% of owner-occupied housing would be, I'm just going to say affordable, and the rental housing would be that 20% of the development would be affordable. And so we're trying to keep this as similar as possible, and we're saying that in both cases 20% of the development would meet the existing affordable housing definition. The only other tweak that you may notice for the eagle-eyed people is that we do put a mention in here about adjusting for the number of bedrooms, because that is another way that the existing definition was a bit flawed. You could create a one-bedroom apartment and then be using a 4-person median income, which is what median incomes are based on, and you could end up out of whack there. And so VHFA publishes a complicated looking chart that actually breaks down every year within 2 weeks of the new income numbers coming out from HUD, which is what in the housing world we all govern everything by. Affordable housing programs are governed by these HUD published median incomes. We update a chart that breaks down and says by number of bedrooms for owner-occupied housing and rental housing, what would be affordable at different income tiers. So when this mentions that rental housing would be affordable at 80% of median, we say what that is. And when we say it has to be affordable for owner-occupied housing at 120% of median, we say what that is. And the affordable housing definition that already exists says it's the higher of that area, roughly meaning county most often, or the statewide number. And so there is, you'll see if you ever look at our ugly chart, you would see different numbers for northwestern Vermont, Chittenden County, and Grand Isle, Franklin, because HUD groups those together into an MSA, and then you'd see a statewide number that's separate. So those are some of the benefits of making this change. You would have some of that regional variation of prices, which is what we see in the marketplace in reality.
Questions for Maura? I guess I'm wondering about the I think I had a question about the definition of affordable. Isn't
Yes.
that, yeah.
I have it in front of me, but I can't pull it up there. What is your question?
What's the definition
What
of
is it?
affordable?
Well, in statute, which is,
Tidy.
I would like to say, what I always say, all housing's affordable in Vermont if you earn enough income. So it's always this ratio of how much you earn versus how much you can afford. Since we can't write statute for each of our individual situations, then we've written it, and the definition now is that owner-occupied housing, it's affordable at 120% of median income, and for rental housing, it's affordable at below 80% of area median income. That was changed in 2017. They used to both be set.
1 second.
Yep.
120% for owner occupied, and what was the second one?
80% for rental housing.
That was then, not now, though.
Is that the current definition?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not touching the affordable housing definition.
Okay.
So that is the current
Did
definition.
it?
I can give you a history on it. I was going to say before 2017 it was slightly different, but I don't know that you
That
want
would
to get into
just
that.
add to, we have a lot of stuff in our heads
I
right
know
now.
you do, so.
That's very helpful. I know
Yep.
that that's always something people
Yeah.
question and want to know.
Because, and I'll just really simply explain that if you ask everyone in Vermont what their income is and you put it from largest to smallest, the median's the middle point. So that means you're mixing together owners and renters. So to say that something's affordable for owners, it usually is a bit above that, and what we see is that rental incomes are actually below that. So we're trying to adjust some with that recognition.
Great, thank you. Wait, Evan?
I just wanted to provide one clarifying point on that, because there is one other difference between the joint proposal and this proposal that the committee members should be aware of. So in order to figure out, there are actually 4 different definitions related to affordable housing in Act 250, and currently really only 2 of them matter, which means that 2 of them are surplusage, probably should have been deleted or amended many years ago, and simply haven't been. So there is a definition of the phrase affordable housing that really is not used at all in determining whether or not something meets a priority housing project. So the definition of affordable housing that currently exists in Act 250 that references the 120%, that's not currently being used. Instead, the affordability threshold is being determined by that definition of mixed income housing, and that does result in a lower number than you would get than the 120% of area median income. And so one of the reasons why the Natural Resources Board reached out to Maura and her colleagues is to help understand if we're going to be using area median income, because they don't actually set targeted purchase prices anymore, what percentage number should we be looking at? Because that should really be changed to consolidate 4 definitions into something way easier to look at.
See, I only knew of 2 affordable housing definitions, one in Title 10, one in Title 24, I know of the definition of affordable housing development.
Yeah.
I know of a definition for permanently affordable housing, but I see reasons for both of those to exist.
Yeah.
So the other two,
Well, this is actually just 4 in Act 250 alone. Like, so 6001 has 4 definitions that are all relevant, all relevant to affordable housing, but actually only 2 of them have any legal consequence right now. The joint proposal attempted to fix that and clean it up a little bit so that it's easier to read. And so now that I'm just pointing that out because if the committee were leaning towards adopting this proposal, please don't lose sight of the cleanup work that we also attempted to accomplish in the joint proposal.
We'll help you, we'll hope that you help us not lose sight.
I'll do my very best. And, sorry, I don't think I said it again. Evan Meaden from the Natural Resources Board, I always forget.
Chris?
Chris Cochran from the Department of Housing and Community Development. We worked with everybody on this and we do support this change. I think it
Thank you for letting us know.
better.
Great. All right, thank you so much for